So the take home here is not that you shouldn't use these products. It's that none of them are going to be first line. And they're really not the way to augment your supply. It comes down to frequency of expression. Hey guys, what's up? Thanks for joining me today on the Lunchbox Reformation. I'm so excited to talk to you about galactagogues today. We are going to talk about the herbal supplements and or foods that people claim will help you produce more breast milk. And we're going to talk, does it work? Does it not? And it's going to be kind of interesting. You might be surprised. But before we go into it, I just want to mention, if you have been listening so far and you have been enjoying this and you have not yet followed or subscribed, please go do that. Pause it right now. Go to the end of the podcast and just hit follow, subscribe, leave a rating and review too. Would really help me make sure that I am talking about things that you care about, and let me know what you want to know. And we'll go into that too. So I would love to hear from you. I hope you guys are ready. So buckle up. We're going to get into this. All right. So if you are a pregnant mama, if you are currently breastfeeding, concerned about your milk supply, or you know somebody who is, then save this episode, share it with a friend, because we are going to talk about the nitty-gritty behind some of these claims and what the research has to say and what will actually help you with your milk supply. Okay, so stick around. I hope it's a lot of fun and you can nerd out with me on some weird nutrition. Okay. So I remember when I first had my kids, I remember being like, really worried about every little drop. And I don't know. I mean, I know they're a lot better now, but I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you thaw out some frozen breast milk and the seam on the plastic bag like cracks open and your milk just gone. We used to freeze these breast milk in these Land Snow bags, and my husband would pull them out. He stayed home with our kids while I was in med school. And so, he was thawing the milk, and there would be days we would lose like a whole day's worth of milk because this stupid box of bags was like crappy. It was so frustrating. Now I think a lot of women will use bottles or other things, and it works, whatever. But I just remember being so mad. And then I would go reach for these like fenugreek or brewer's yeast or whatever concoction in the herbal store saying it was going to help me produce more breast milk because I was like, I got to make up for yesterday. Or you're like, I want to go out with my friends and have a good time, so I need to pump some extra milk for the baby. And, whatever. Like, there's lots of reasons where you will feel like maybe you're not producing enough, or you want to produce more than what you have. You want more supply. And I totally get it. Totally get it. Okay. So even though I knew better, right? Like it was, it's like when you're late night and tired and you see something as seen on TV and suddenly it ends up, in your house, better, but you still somehow believe there's magic in it, and I was so there. Okay, so one of my favorite things is actually brewer's yeast. I hear this a lot. There's lots of recipes out there for lactation cookies with brewer's yeast, or, they'll talk about beer or other things that have yeast in it. It's really supposed to help you produce more milk. And I hear this and I really smile and nod when I have a family in front of me. But I have some really disappointing news. Wah, wah, wah. There's actually a pretty good randomized controlled trial that came out recently, and it really was pretty underwhelming. I'll put it in the show notes if you're curious, but the idea here was that, we really wanted to compare, there was an animal study a long time ago that looked at animals who were having brewer's yeast, or, it would increase their milk supply. And so then the hope was that maybe it would happen in humans. Plus, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence from people over the years saying this really worked for me. So this study looked at that, and it was a huge bummer. They used brewer's yeast, which is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is actually what we study in the lab. If you're super nerd in basic science and you're doing that, I love it. Here for it. But anyway, when we're doing it in food, it's actually this flaked product. You can find it usually in the part of the store where there's spices and stuff. Sometimes it's in health food stores, and one common brand is Bragg's. That's pretty easy to recognize and see. But there's a lot of other brands out there. The point of it is that this flaky kind of yellow flake stuff that looks kind of weird, and it sort of dissolves into food, tastes a little bit like cheese or Parmesan almost. And so in my household growing up, we always would sprinkle it on our popcorn, and we would put it in our eggs. It was something I grew up eating because my mom was super into nutrition and stuff. And so it was just in our house. And I love it. It's also really delicious on tofu. If you happen to be vegetarian or vegan, it's really common in those communities, especially because it's actually it has complete amino acid profile. So although it's vegan, it's got a complete protein, one of the very few things on this planet, maybe the only one. And it's really cool. It also has a bunch of B vitamins in there. And so the idea here is that it would help support breast milk supply. And interestingly, in this most recent study, they showed that about 65% of the women taking it perceived an increase in milk production compared to 35% of the placebo group. So these women were like, "Oh yeah, I totally know. I'm totally pumping more. This is so much better." But the reality was the actual milk volume was no different. Wah, wah. So I have to say, although it's in my house and I personally like it and use it, I don't think it's going to give you more milk. Okay. Sorry. Let's move on to the next one. The next galactagogue that is often claimed as being really helpful is fenugreek. And I remember when I had my second kid, I was working in a clinic that had a really diverse population. And there was a woman who was Ethiopian, and she was like, "I love fenugreek. You have to use it. Here's all my recipes." She brought me teas. She brought me a little powder. And she was like, "You need to have it everywhere." You guys, I don't know if this happened to you, but I swear it made my sweat from my armpits smell like celery. I smelled it all the time. And I was like, I can't do this. I smell so weird. So I didn't take. But, anecdotally, I thought, I'll give it a try. If it helped her, it's not going to hurt me. Why not? And that was a deterrent. Okay. Well, fast forward now, we actually have a little bit of literature. And there was actually pretty big meta-analysis that was published in 2018, and it looked at the effectiveness of fenugreek as a galactagogue. And the weighted average was that, according to these studies, it did improve things by a half an ounce. Sorry, guys. Not a home run. Okay. Now, what about fennel? Fennel sounds similar to fenugreek, but it's not. It's actually a root vegetable. I love it. It tastes like licorice almost. One of my kids, actually, it's like one of his favorite things. The seeds in fennel are really great. They'll give the flavor to Italian sausage. And then there's fronds, like the little top of them. So like there's a bulb in the bottom that's white. It has green stalk and these like little frilly fronds that sometimes can look like dill or be confused for dill. And all of them have great flavor, and they're a little bit different chemistry between bioactive components all the way through, but they're delicious. It's great for soups. They're good at roasting. Really, really good. If you haven't had fennel, please go try it. It's delicious. And when they took fennel seed tea, maybe a little bit more, but this one was a study in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 25 that looked at supply in moms who had preterm babies. And in this particular study, they had an average difference of about 98 milliliters, which is reasonable. That's 3 ounces by day 7. So this was given, to moms early in their production. When you look when you look at larger studies, more collectively, all of them are going to be small individual studies anyway. So they're going to vary pretty widely in their systematic design. But Cochrane review on this was really underwhelming. Wah, wah. So not much. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, milk thistle, I wouldn't waste your time or money. Sorry. This is milk thistle actually has a lot of properties that it's claimed to be really beneficial for. And it's certainly safe to do. And there was a couple studies that showed large differences, like 100 milliliters even by day 7. But similar kind of thing, when you look at multiple studies together and compare their study design, it really washes out and not super helpful. Interestingly, I have 2 more that may actually be worth your time. One is dates, and compared to fenugreek, actually was more beneficial than fenugreek. Dates are delicious, awesome. I love them. I eat them all the time. My personal favorite are measurable dates, but you'd have to eat a lot of dates in order to get some benefit from here. And that's good, but So if you happen to be taking some food over to a friend or to who's having a baby and you want to make a dessert with dates in them, by all means do that because it's delicious, but may not make a ton more milk. Now, the last one is actually really interesting, and I would say this is one to watch. It's moringa, and moringa is a leaf, and it is either found as a powder, a leaf powder that you can add to things, or it can be in capsule form. And there are some interesting studies on this, and it actually does look like it maybe produces substantially more for women. So it's one to consider. About 400 milliliters a day, which is a lot, by increasing prolactin levels in a recent 2025 systematic review. Now, I would tell you that was not one I personally ever tried because it just wasn't available to me, nor was it like something that people were talking about. But it's pretty much been around for a long time in the Far East. And so I think, especially in India. And so I think there's a lot of value with thinking about that. But, it's one that is like, okay, maybe. Okay, so now that I maybe like bummed you out with my disappointing evidence or lack of evidence to support some of those products on the market, I want to tell you what really will increase your milk supply. Are you ready for it? It might not surprise you, but it's actually breastfeeding your baby. It's frequency of expressions. Okay, hear me out. We know that about 8 to 12 times a day, the breasts need to be expressed, either from pumping or by direct latch. And the key here is a good latch. Makes all the difference. Okay, mamas? So what I'm saying is, if you are pumping or breastfeeding in a total day 5 times, and you're disappointed that your milk supply is low, I really hate to break it to you, but reaching for moringa is not the answer. It really is. Augment your frequency. That's what's going to get your milk supply up. I used to call this a Netflix and nurse session where, if you're feeling like you're low or you don't have enough milk, then block out the weekend, change everything in your schedule to just sit around and nurse that baby every time they need to nurse. Or if your baby doesn't latch well and you've transitioned over to pumping, which a lot of mamas do, then just pump every 2 hours during the day. Make it to that 12 pump time. It's not time on the pump. A lot of moms get confused. It's not like, I want the baby to be on the breast for an hour and that's a really great feeding session. No, 10 to 20 minutes max, and then take the baby off, get a break, take a rest, take a nap, and then come back 2 hours later. That's going to be more beneficial to have a cumulative 20 minutes or 40 minutes combined for those 2 feedings than being on the breast for a full hour. I hope that makes sense. But it's frequency of expressions that are going to stimulate prolactin for the mom's brain to then tell the mammary gland to produce more milk. And that cycle is what's really, really important. So the take home here is not that you shouldn't use these products. It's that none of them are going to be first line. And they're really not the way to augment your supply. It comes down to frequency of expression. So this may seem a little unfair. And I think it's discouraging because at the end of the day, that's time. And what is the one thing that most mamas are really struggling with? It's time. And I just want to shift gears a little bit and think about the systems in place that are going to help you with breast milk. And so I will say breastfeeding is not free. It's not free. It is your time. It is your energy. I know when I was breastfeeding, it was really hard. I didn't have a place to go. And it wasn't just that I was I couldn't just I was in classes that I had to physically be present for. And so I was pumping every 3 hours. I would excuse myself to go pump, but I didn't have a pumping room or a location, and so I would sometimes have to walk out of my school into the car garage, into my car, use the battery charger. And because I was using the battery charger to pump, it would take 30 minutes sometimes to pump when I could have just used 10 minutes if I had an outlet. But I didn't have a station, I didn't have a designated place to go. And so if you are currently pregnant and you're wanting to breastfeed and you're planning to, think about reaching out to your team before going back to work and finding and securing a place to pump that has everything you need. Nowadays, a lot of employers really have to do that. And so that's much more accessible than it was, but it may still take a little bit of advocacy on your part to do. And I think it's well worth it. Now, you may be the first one to champion that. And in my situation, I didn't have a loud enough voice, nor did I care to like do that. I just was so drained. I was like, I just didn't even have the energy. But it may be that if you're the first in your workplace to advocate for pumping space, then kudos to you, because you're setting the foundation for another woman who can be successful. So I would just tell you that it's your time. Okay. So like in my situation, I had to carve out that time and say, this really matters to me. And I had a recording device, and I would hit record in the classroom and when I would walk away so that I could go back and listen to it later. And it ended up taking a lot of extra time to stay ahead in class. Things are a little different now. And I think med school's changed a lot. I hope it has. But, there are a lot of structural things in the day that make it really difficult. If you're at home and you have multiple children and it's really hard for you to breastfeed in a quiet room or to pump in a space, think about a wearable. Think about using your FSA or HSA money to get a wearable, or to get something that can go with you so that you can address the barriers to give you that time freedom back. But you know what the biggest issue was for me? I'm going to be real honest. I didn't want to be tethered. I didn't want to. Like, I love to move. I love being busy and being occupied. I love engaging with people, and I wanted to be out and about, and going to pump felt like a punishment. It was like I had to go in timeout. I hated it. And, you may be not alone in that area. So I just want to say that if you are really wanting to make breastfeeding your goal and your milk supply is struggling, focus first on getting those 8 to 12 sessions in, get your supply up. If you need adjunctive support, you can consider the galactagogues, but talk to your OB. There are medications out there. I'm not going to go into that today. That's not my scope. But think about some of those other issues. If you are early on and you're struggling with your latch, find the support of an amazing lactation consultant to help you, because you need that. Your baby needs that. And it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to have this figured out. You could have had 12 children and still have the 13th child have difficulty with latching and get help. Just because you may have done it before, or somebody around you has done it, or you may be even a lactation consultant yourself, it doesn't mean that breastfeeding is going to be easy or that latch is going to be easy. And it is okay to get support once, twice, 20 times from a lactation consultant. That's okay. This is a part of your journey. And if it's really important to you and you really want to do this, then, don't feel like you are a burden or that you are taking up too much time or resources from somebody else. It's an investment, and it's not free. It doesn't have to be. You can get the advocacy. And I want to encourage you to get the support that you need, whether that is asking for your time back in another way or carving out the supports well before you walk into the workplace so that transition is easier for you to continue your frequency of pumping or frequency of breastfeeding that is going to help support your goal. Okay, one other thought here, and that is sleep. Now, I have heard a lot of moms who are like, I just can't sleep and the baby sleeps. And I hear you. I was so there because I couldn't handle my house being messy or other things happening. And so this is where you can kind of think again about your time freedom. And if your goal is to pump and you're in the early stage, it may be worthwhile, instead of asking for meals from people, maybe you ask for, somebody to come clean the house for you. Or maybe you ask for, instead of baby gifts that you maybe don't need 25,000 swaddle blankets. I mean, they're cool, but maybe what you need is somebody to take care of some other tasks for you in the house, because I think one of the traps that a lot of women fall into is I'm going to be on maternity leave, so I'm going to have a bunch of time. And then you don't. So if there's things in the house that you're trying to mentally do, I want to give you a PSA that you have permission to not have to do all of those things. You have permission to take the time you need, because breastfeeding is not free. It is a privilege and it is a choice, and it isn't always what everybody needs to do. It's okay if you don't. You're not a failure as a mom if you're not breastfeeding. But if you're struggling and you're needing to get more time to get there, take the time you need. There's no race. Okay, mamas, If this episode resonated with you and helped ground you in your breastfeeding journey, I'm so glad. And I would love to invite you to a breastfeeding masterclass that I'm going to be doing in January, where we're going to be diving deeper into the science of breast milk. And we're going to compare both breast milk and formulas. We're going to talk deeply about colostrum versus mature milk, amino acids, and all these cool, fun things that are deep dives into it all. And if that would be helpful for you, please come and join us. The registration will be in the show notes. And if you know another amazing mama out there who's navigating feeding decisions and wants to nourish the whole child from the inside out, please share this episode with one of your friends. This helps support her and helps support us reach more mamas out there who are just like you and want to do everything with the best evidence-based support with calm and clarity. And that is it, guys. Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. And I hope this resonated with you. If, however, this brought up some questions or you're looking for a little more clarity around how to feed your child specifically, you don't have to do it all alone. If you want to learn more about how to work with me or ways I can help you, hop on over to newstorynutrition.com and just send me an email. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to know how I can help you if you want to go deeper in your own kids' nutrition or you need support. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, nourishing your kids starts with supporting you first. I hope you guys have a fantastic week. See you back on the next episode.